Welcome to this lesson. In this lesson we shall be discussing per unit subscriptions in the license and subscription app embedded in Microsoft Dynamics 365 for finance and supply chain, which is also known as finance and operations. Per unit subscriptions are the most commonly used subscriptions where a company charges its customer a fee per unit. For example, per user, per device, per activation, etc. We'll jump straight into the application. This is finance and operations, and we'll move over directly to the subscription management module. And under subscription management, there we find the subscription management cockpit. I will filter for my customer, which is Contoso Limited. This customer currently has no subscription plans, so I'll go ahead and create a new plan. I can choose 4 types of classifications. One of the 4 types, there's standard, project, retail, and asset. For standard and project classifications, I'm also allowed to link this subscription plan to a project from the project module of Microsoft Dynamics 365 Finance. Then there's the program type. There's a previous lessons about program types and how to configure them. I will select the CSP, and the CSP has been configured for me to have the default subscription type of per unit. And since this lesson is about per unit subscription, I will leave it like that. There is also a subscription commercial template which I can choose to populate some fields. This will expedite the creation of plans, but I won't use it in this lesson. There's also the billing type, which is up front, and this is linked to the subscription type per unit. Some other subscription types, like consumption subscriptions, won't have an upfront but an in arrears billing type. There's this very important billing posting profile ID. There's a previous lesson about billing posting profiles, what the fields mean there and how to configure them. Here I'll simply select the simplest one. It's also noteworthy to look at the sales billing and purchase billing field groups. The purchase billing field group is appearing because we have a create purchase order flag which is switched on, while the sales billing period for subscription plans will always be visible. So the billing period is monthly, but it could also of course be quarterly, half-yearly, yearly, and other. If you set it to other, then you can manually set the length of the billing cycle in months. In this case, since this is a basic course in subscription management, I'll simply set it to monthly, which is the most commonly found subscription type. Then there's the period type, which is calendar or rolling. This is an important concept to understand. A calendar period type means that the end of the first billing cycle will be the end of the current calendar period. So in this case, the end of the month. So if it starts on the 14th of September and it is calendar, the end of the billing cycle will be the end of the month, which is the 30th of September. If I set it to rolling, if the period starts on the 14th of September, then the end of the first billing cycle is actually the 13th of October, which is a month later. In this case, I'll set it to calendar. I can also choose my indirect customer in case I'm selling the subscription to a partner, and I also have to record the indirect customer for statistical or marketing purposes. The purchase billing period does not necessarily have to follow that of the sales. So for example, I can set up a sales billing period monthly and a quarterly billing period. To keep things simple again, since this is the first lesson of the basic course, I will put it to monthly for both sales and purchasing and hit OK, and my plan is now created. So now I can go ahead and create subscription plan lines. Please note that if the classification of my subscription plan is project, then in that case I won't be able to create plan lines, but I'll have to create them from the project itself. This is covered in another lesson, but in this case the classification is standard, so I can just go ahead and click new, and this will show a new slider dialog where I can select my item. I can optionally also select a variant number, and I can also override the product name for the scope of this subscription plan line. I'll put in a quantity of let's say 5 for this item, and I'll set the start date as today, the 14th of September, and the sales price has been automatically inherited as per standard Dynamics 365 logic, same as some of the other fields which you can see here. The billing period sales amount has been calculated as 100 euros times the quantity 5, which is 500. However, the pro rata is less. Why? Because I've set this up, like we said, to be a calendar billing period. So the first cycle is shorter. It starts on the 14th of September and ends on the 30th of September, making it a short billing cycle, and thus the pro rata sales amount is less than the billing period sales amount. Optionally, I could also set up a discount percentage or a discount in money. In the purchasing field group, the story is very similar, but of course we get the purchase prices, currencies, and also you can also select a supplier. In this case it's been automatically defaulted. I click OK and my plan line is created. I can decide to create as many plan lines as I want as part of this plan, and I can also decide to deactivate in this case this line, and it in this case will be disabled and will be ignored in other future processes. But for now this is fine, so I'll go ahead and publish this plan. This plan is now published, which means that it will be automatically picked up by the master process. The master process it is a best practice to configure it as a batch job, which is part of the standard platform of Dynamics. But in this case, in order to show you what's happening for this lesson, I will run it manually. You might also need to run it manually, for example, if you want to swiftly invoice a customer and you do not want to wait for the batch job to run at night, for example. So in this case we'll go ahead and fast track to the process. I'm running the master process. The master process has created now 2 actions for me. Why? Because one is linked to my sales, which is towards my customer, and one for my purchase, which is linked to my supplier, as you can see here. I also have the date from and date to here for the action, and optionally, if I do not want to use these dates, I can override them at this point. If there is any VAT calculated, it will also be done here. In this case there is no VAT. There's also the gross amount before discounts and the net amount after discounts. So now I will go ahead and firm this action from the cockpit, but please note again that in a real life scenario there would be a different user who will be using the separate screen for the action messages which are across all subscriptions, and from there he or she will process these actions. But in this case, since I'm an administrator, I'm using the cockpit, I want to invoice this customer immediately for the first billing cycle. So again, I will fast track and I can go ahead and firm my action and click OK. My action is now firmed, and this means that I have a real sales order linked to this action. So here, if I want to, optionally I can browse to the sales order, but the beauty of this solution is that you are completely encapsulated from the standard sales order. You don't even need to know how it works, of course, unless you need to do something advanced like changing something on the order itself. But for most of the cases you don't even need to browse to the sales order itself. You can remain on the screen. If you'd like, you can print a pro forma invoice to send to your customer. If you're ready to bill the first billing cycle of the subscription, you would say post and click OK. And now the action is posted, the sales order is posted, so it now automatically moves to the historical tab of the action messages of the subscription plan. And now I can go ahead and view my invoice. And there it is. This is my invoice, and it clearly shows that this is my first billing cycle, which is a calendar. It's a broken cycle. It's from the 14th of September till the 30th of September. I can go ahead and exit from here, and I can do the same thing for my purchase order. I can click it and firm the action. The action is now firmed. Once again, if we scroll to the right, we can see that there is a purchase order now linked to this action, and I can go ahead and post this action. Keep in mind that you can move around all these fields via personalization to your convenience. I now got a warning that I must specify an invoice number. Yes, that's correct, that's a good warning. So I'll edit this action. I'll put in an invoice number, for example, INV 9098, and I'll set the posting date to today's date. I save this and repost it. So here we are again. Now we've got a posted sales order invoice action and a posted purchase order action. And as you can see on our plan 9 that we created originally, the billing cycle date now moved to the next cycle. So now the next cycle is the 1st of October. Don't forget, this is a calendar period type. So the next cycle starts on the 1st of October till the 31st of October. And if we go and browse to the details, note that it is uneditable because the plan is now published. We'll see that the billing period amount and the pro rata amount is equal, because now we are in the second billing cycle. So the next invoice, of course, will bill the customer, and the supplier will bill us for a whole cycle. I've now changed the session date to be in October. So if I run the master process once again, so let's assume now that we're in a month later, of course, it's October. So we run the master process once again, and there we have again brand new actions generated for this plan. One for the sales and one for the purchase. So I hope from this lesson you've learned how to the basics of managing per unit subscriptions. As you can see, it is very efficient. You save a lot of time. It's a very clean way how to manage your subscriptions. without the hassles of creating a lot of sales orders and purchase orders on a recurring basis manually. Don't forget that for the scope of the lesson I just showed you the manual generation of the actions via the master process. In a production real life implementation it will be just a batch job creating the actions in the background, and then you just have a billing clerk or someone in a similar role, an AP or AR manager, who's just firming, reviewing with the account managers and firming the actions and sending them to the customers. Just in case you also want to skip the firming, we have also a parameter to auto firm and even auto post, but that depends of course on the level of automation and repeatability you have within your organization. So here I showed you the fastest but most manual way how to achieve recurring billing within subscriptions using the license and subscription app. Thank you for watching. We will be back with another lesson soon. Keep tuned. Thank you very much.